Okay, so today we are going to go through and talk about finding the domain and the range if given a graph of a relation. Okay, now you can find the domain and range for any old relation, or it can be for a function. Okay, it doesn't have to be a function to find domain and range. So, for example, if we take a look at a graph like this. Okay, we've dealt with these before. What kind of equation gave us this type of graph? Do you remember? Square roots. Yeah, square roots gave us these. Okay. Now, first question being, is this a function or not? This is a function. How can you tell? Yeah, don't go horizontal. Vertical line test is what we're doing. Any place I put a vertical line on here, it only crosses that graph in one spot. So therefore, it's a function. Okay? So we want to find the domain and the range. So domain is dealing with the x values. The range is dealing with the y values. So looking at the domain first, where does our graph start? 0, 0. That's where it starts. Does it go in the negative direction? No. So can x be any of those negative values? No. Does it go in the positive direction for x? Yeah. Can x be 3? Sure. Can x be 7? Yeah. X can be anything from 0 in the positive direction. So how would I write that for my domain? X is greater than or equal to 0. That's exactly it. Okay? How about the range now? Range is for the y's. Where does our graph start? 0, 0. Do we have any y values that are negative? No, our graph does not go down for the y. It doesn't go this way. Right? That would be in the negative direction. It doesn't do that. It goes in the positive direction. And please remember that this graph does not level out. It's not going to start going up and then start leveling out and go horizontal. Okay? It continues to rise. It continues to get wider as it goes farther and farther in the positive x direction. So therefore, we can have any positive y value. Okay, eventually this graph will get to those really large y values. Okay?
Will it never go down?
It would never go down. This is wrong. It will never go down. Okay, it's always going to start at 0, 0 and continue to go up, 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 and keep getting wider and wider and wider forever. Okay, it's never going to curve back. All right? Questions on that? So then what's our range? Y is greater than or equal to 0. Questions on this first one? Let's try another one. All right, so if we look at this parabola, and I apologize, it's a little lopsided here, but you get the idea. Okay, so if we look at this parabola, first off, is this a function or not? Yes, this is definitely a function. It passes the vertical line test. Okay, well now let's talk about the domain. Again, the domain is our possible x values. So for our domain, what can x be? Any real number. Because again, this parabola is going to continue to get wider and wider and wider as it gets bigger, as we go off the graph, right? So these x values are going to start from 0, and they're going to keep going out to here. Well, that's all we can see on the graph. But once you get off the graph, they keep getting bigger. Same thing in the negative direction. They go this far that we can see on the graph, but it's going to continue to get wider and wider as we zoom out. Okay? So then our domain is all real numbers. And the symbol for that looks like that. That means all real numbers. If you would rather write out all real numbers, then by all means you do that. Okay? But the symbol for it is like that. What that symbol actually is a bold R. A lot of people think it looks like a TR. Okay? But actually it's a bolded R. The way you make it, just make it an 11 and then turn it into an R. Okay? It means all real numbers. Okay?
I still love the S2.
All right. So, next, let's talk about the range. Ranges are possible Y values. Well, there's a number that's significant in our range. -3 is the significant number there. Why is that significant? Okay, but is that like the top value or the bottom value? That is our minimum value. Remember we talked about maximum and minimum values last semester for parabolas? That is our minimum value for our parabola. So since it's the minimum, we know that all of our Y values then can either be -3 or bigger than that. So therefore Y is greater than or equal to -3. That is our range. Exactly. There's only one restriction. It's the minimum. Okay? Questions here? Okay, what about this guy? First off, is it a function? Yes, it definitely passes the vertical line test. What is the domain?
2.
Remember, domain is the x values. And yes, in this case, it can be any x value. Okay? All real numbers. How about our range? 2 is the range. The only y value that's acceptable here is 2. If I went through and plotted any points on that line, my y coordinate would have to be 2. Okay? So therefore our range is just 2. Questions there? Yes? Okay, taking a look at this example here. First off, is that red segment a function? No, it fails the vertical line test horribly, right? Okay, so it is not a function, but now we still want to find our domain and our range. So, what is the domain? What is our possible x values for that red line segment? Yes? -3 is over here. 5. Every x value on that line segment has to be a 5. Okay? Now, how about our range? So you're telling me that we can have a y value down here. So -3 and 7?
-3.
Okay, it's the whole thing, -3 through 7. So what we're doing here, we don't write it like this, folks. We want to go through and say that our range can be down here at -3. It can be up here at +7. Okay? And it's everything in between that. So we say -3 is our lower boundary. +7 is the upper boundary. Y, all of our y values are between that. Can our y value be -3? Yes. And is all of our y values then greater than or less than -3? Greater than. So greater than or equal to -3 is what our y values are going to be. Again, don't say, well, it's got to be greater than. Don't write a greater than symbol there. Remember that evil Pac-Man has to eat the bigger number. So evil Pac-Man is eating the y. Okay? How about y and 7? Which one's bigger? Or, yeah, y and 7. Which one's bigger? 7. Can y be 7?
Yes.
Yes.
Is like the y being in the middle saying like -3, like the answer has to be, like in between there it has to be greater than -3 or greater than or equal to, but less than or equal to 7. That's what the y is.
That's exactly what that's saying. So there's our answer for the red segment. Okay? So this graph, you will see, you'll do a lot more with these if you take Algebra 3. This is a cubic graph. Okay, we've been dealing with parabolas, which are quadratic, which means that the parent function is x squared. This is a cubic, which means its parent function is x cubed, x to the third power.
So are they kind of symmetric, like the trapezoid? Yeah.
They're kind of symmetrical. Yeah, you'll definitely deal with these a lot more in your Algebra 3 class. Okay, but I would love to go into detail about these guys, but that's not this class. All right. So first things first, though, what can we talk about these? Is it a function or not? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a function. It passes the vertical line test. Okay? And so the next thing we need to talk about then is the domain and the range. So, looking at domain only. Domain is just the x values. What are the possible x values? All real numbers. Any questions on why it's all real numbers? No questions on why? Okay, that's good. I'm hoping there's no questions. How about the range? The range on this one's also going to be all real numbers. Okay, again, because it's both going up and down, right? So the range is all real numbers.
So also just a line that goes positive or negative slope is going to be all real numbers.
So yeah, let's do something like that. If I had just a straight line like that, then what would the domain be? All real numbers. What would the range be? All real numbers. Okay? Any other questions? If not, I've got at least one more example I'd like to do. Okay, so in this example, we are now dealing with a circle. And yes, people are already telling me, not a function. Okay? And the reason it is not a function is because a vertical line passing through it can pass through 2 points on our graph. So therefore, it fails the vertical line test. So this is not a function. But for those of you trying to figure out your domain and range, this is a circle that has a radius of 3. A circle that has a radius of 3. So please take a moment and write down, do your best job trying to write down the domain and the range for this circle. All right. Looking at the domain first. So our possible x values. Sometimes it might be easier to kind of draw yourself boundaries here. Okay, saying, well, the smallest x value that I can have is going to be right there. 1. Smallest x value I can have. Biggest x value I can have is in right there. 7. So 1 and 7. And x can then be anything in between that. So, how would I write my domain? Through the mumble, I believe I picked this up. 1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 7. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Everybody see how we got it? Okay, let's take a look at the range then. So the minimum value for our range is 1. The maximum value for our range is 7. And then y can be anything in between. So, what's our range?
1
X equals
less than or equal to y.
Y, make sure you draw y this time, it's not x.
Less than or
I'm taking points off if you say my range is in x's. Okay? Less than or equal to 7. Questions?